All right, we are ready to begin our next lesson. Today's learning goal is that students will be able to divide using a two-digit divisor. Now, in our last lesson, we learned how to divide with a one-digit divisor, and we learned that there were certain steps that we needed to follow. And so we're going to look at those steps again. Remember, we use does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers to help remind us the order of the steps. The first step is division. We're going to find out how many times the divisor divides into the first digit. Well, since we're using two digits, we know that it's not going to go into the first digit. So we're going to look at how many times it goes into the first two digits. Next, we multiply the number that we find, that first digit in the quotient, by the divisor. We subtract those numbers. We check and make sure that our answer to that subtraction problem is less than the divisor. If it's not, we have to change our number in the quotient. And then we bring down the next number in the dividend. And we keep repeating that until we get our final solution. So here's our steps to remind us how we're going to go, how we're going to work these problems. And here is our first sample problem. So here's our first problem. We have 156 divided by 12. So we're going to do our same steps that we've been doing. Does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? All right, so we divide first, and we already know that this number is too big to go into a single digit. So we're going to skip the first digit, and we're going to see how many times does 12 go into 15. Well, 12 and 15 are very close, so it's going to go in one time. So we took care of the division part. Now we're ready to multiply. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. Now we're ready to go to the next step, which is subtract. 5 minus 2 is 3. 1 minus 1 is 0. Then we're going to check. So is 3 less than 12? Yes, it is. And so now we're going to bring down the next digit. So we're going to bring down the 6. Then we repeat. So we're going to see how many times does 12 go into 36. Well, we know that 3 times 12 is 36, so it's going to go in 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. We're then going to subtract. 6 minus 6 is 0. 3 minus 3 is 0. 0 is less than 12, and we're going to bring down. Well, there's nothing left to bring down. So that means we have finished our problem. Since we don't have a remainder, we don't have to write the remainder. So we don't write remainder 0. So the solution, 156 divided by 12 is 13. All right, so our second sample problem that we're going to do is 208 divided by 13. So here again, we've written the problem down, 208 divided by 13. We're going to start with our steps. Does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? We're going to start with division. How many times does 13 go into 20? Well, it's going to go in one time. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 1 is 1. The next step is to subtract. So we have to borrow from the 2. That makes that a 1. The 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. And then 1 minus 1 is 0. We check to see, is the 7 less than 13? Yes, it is. So we're ready to go to the next step, which is bring down. So we're going to bring the 8 down. So now the next step, we're going to start over again with division. We're going to look and see how many times does 13 go into 78. Now that's a little bit more difficult than what we've done before. Most the other couple times we've done this, it's been pretty obvious. So we're going to look and see. 13, it probably goes in 6 times. We're going to give 6 a try, and understanding that if it's not 6, that we're going to have to adjust our quotient. So we're going to start with 6 and see if we get this right. 6 times 3 is 18, so we put an 8 there. Carry the 1. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Well, look at that. It worked out just perfectly. So the next step after we multiply is to subtract. 8 minus 8 is 0. 7 minus 7 is 0. We check, is 0 less than 13? Yes, it is. So we're ready to bring down. Well, there's nothing left to bring down. We have a 0 for a remainder, so we don't have to write that up here. And so the solution to our problem is 208 divided by 13 is 16. All right, so we are ready for our practice problems. So go on to Moodle tonight, do the practice problems out of the practice book. It's going to give you directions to make a model. We're going to just use our division steps, our does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers, and use that to solve these problems. So if you have any questions, please remember to bring those questions to class. After you finish the practice problem, make sure you rate yourself on our scale and write that next to the heading in your notes. That's it for tonight's lesson, so have a great evening.